they're related to the zebra, but they're the only known relative to the giraffe. Now on the left, going to the bathroom, is the greater kudu. They kind of look like deer, but these are the second largest antelope in the reserve, because when they're all grown, we're talking almost 800 pounds. Now still on the left, coming up is the old watering hole, and it's a gathering place for animals, so I am really hoping that somewhere down here is a black rhino. And we'll stop up ahead, let you get a picture, and I really encourage one because there's not a whole lot left. A little over 4,000 remain. And the reason why? Well, poachers think the horns are super valuable, but what they need to know is the horn of a rhino, well, it's made of the same stuff our fingernails are made of, so not exactly rare. Now, I was hoping one would be close to the watering hole, but there's one on the move running up against the rock wall. Look at the size of this animal, 3,000 pounds, so they're big. But they can run 35 miles an hour, so just because they're big doesn't mean they're slow. And his hide is a little less than an inch thick, so the main predator they worry about are poachers. Not an animal, because he can repel almost any animal he encounters. That even means a lion.
How would you like to go?
Now still on the left, coming up, there's kind of a clearing that opens up. And if you look about halfway up the hill, you'll see the tallest storks in all of Africa, the saddle-billed stork. They can get up to 5 feet high, but they're named because right on the bill, they have this little yellow saddle feature that helps us identify them.
Ooh.
Well, now let's head on over to the Safi River, because that's where we see the 5,000-pound Nile hippopotamus. Now, the hippos will first show up on the right, then the left side gets to see, but the best way to see a hippo is kind of look near the top of the water. If they're in the water, it is getting a little cool out. They hold their breath for about 6 to 8 minutes, so unless they're submerged, usually we see them kind of poking through the water. But in the evening, or early evening, is when the hippos get out of the water. It's a little cooler then, so they climb up on the banks, and then they just chow down on all the vegetation they can find. Now on the left, there are definitely some hippos up ahead, but on this little island and swimming around it are the pink-backed pelicans. And we usually find them here because they build their nest in the trees. But you have to be careful when you share your space with hippos. They're very territorial. When they open up their mouth really wide, it kind of looks like they're yawning, but it's actually a threat. They're telling whoever's getting too close to them to back off or they're going to get chomped. Now when you see a hippo actually moving through the water, they're in a river, so it looks like they're swimming, but the adults are so big, they don't have to. They can just walk along the bottom of the river and easily get around that way. Now there is another resident of the river up ahead, and I don't mean the vultures. As we go across this bridge, look at all the Nile crocodile. Now check out their jaws. They are so strong when they close them. They can crush 1,200 pounds per square inch. So make sure you're staying seated, guys. I don't want to lose you here. They're over 20 feet long, so they're larger, and most importantly, they're more aggressive than their cousin, the American alligator. This is Simba 1. Go ahead, Wilson.
Just wanted to let you know that my ground patrol has been observing activity near the Red Clay Pit. Definitely want to check out that area.
Sounds great. I think we'll be over there in a little bit. But before we get there, coming up on the right, this is a baobab tree. Now, one of the reasons they're actually kind of common out here is how they survive. They can store water in the trunk of the tree, so that's how they get through the dry spells when you're not going to find a lot of water even available out here. But welcome everyone to the savannah, or the East Serengeti grasslands, home to giraffe, elephants, lions. They're all out here, but it represents the wild part of Africa we're trying to keep preserved for them. Now coming up on the right, actually sitting in the tall grasses here, are the emblems of the reserve, the sable antelope. The reason we chose them is they're tough. Even if they're afraid, they will stand and face a predator to protect their herd. They use the horns they have to defend themselves, and they are very sharp horns. Speaking of horns, way over on the right, so we'll be able to wind our way around and get closer. Well, look at the horns on the Ankole cattle over there, kind of right in front of that truck. Those horns can get 6 feet long, fully grown.
¿Están diferentes los camioncitos de Ángel? ¿Los estaban abiertos, no?
No.
Now, as we get closer to the Ankole cattle, you might logically think their horns are tremendously heavy. Well, blood flows through them, and that means on a really hot day in the middle of summer, when the wind blows across the horns, well, they basically act like a radiator. They just help cool them down. But the horns are so pronounced, it makes them a status symbol amongst the tribes of Africa. So if you ever hear anyone mention the cattle of kings, this is who they're talking about. It's kind of a little nickname for them.
Wow, mira.
Ya sé que se ven.